Well, good evening, everybody. We'd like to welcome you tonight to our meeting on August the 7th, Hendersonville Regional Planning Commission. And want to thank you for being here this evening. And notice that we have all planning commissioners present. So with that, we'll call this meeting to order. There are no public hearings. Is there any requests for information and assistance from any of the commissioners or staff? Hearing none.
There is a public hearing. Let me just see.
There is a public hearing. Okay. All right. There is one. Okay. We need to add that to the agenda then. That is on there. Got a motion to add the public hearing to the agenda. We got a motion, got a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We have one public hearing tonight. It's to request to approve a revised preliminary development plan for the Festival Center. Property totaling 31.17 acres is located on the west side of Rockland Road, south of West Main Street. And we have one person signed up for this hearing, and so if that person would move to the microphone and identify yourself. Janet Sill, I believe. Is she here? Okay. If you would, just come to the microphone and we'll be happy to hear what you have to say. Right here. Mm-hmm. You can just push the mic up to your little bit. Yeah, there you go. Just identify yourself, please.
Yes, I'm Janet Sill. My husband passed away last November the 7th, so he could not be here.
Sorry to hear that.
As was requested. So I just wanted to say that we have signed a contract with Racetrack to sell our property there on Main Street. That is Dunn Motors now. And it's my hope that this will be passed and that we are in compliance and they are in compliance and we're ready to sell.
Thank you, Ms. Sill. Thank you so much. And she was the only one signed up for this hearing, so we'll declare that hearing closed. Now moving on, is there any request for information assistance? Additions to the agenda, we all had one. We have the minutes from July 17th.
Pardon me. I do have a request for two additions to the agenda tonight.
Okay.
First, I would like to list as an addition a procedural matter for the Planning Commission that I would like to discuss.
Do you have any documentation on that procedural matter?
I've discussed it with you a couple of times about beginning the Planning Commission.
Sure, yeah.
So I would like to see if the Planning Commission would approve that.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
The next is a point of privilege, and it's to discuss a matter that I have brought up before, and that's Drakes Creek Road.
Okay.
Which affects several developments that we have approved in that area.
Okay. Is there any discussion on any of these additions to the agenda? I don't think we have to take a vote on that, do we? On the additions to? We do have to take a vote? Okay, so we have two procedural matter and a point of privilege to add to the agenda. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We got a motion. A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's carried. All right, now we have the minutes. We'll come back to the additions to the agenda at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
The minutes of July 17th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Ms. Atchley, second by Ms. Stringfellow. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are carried. We have an abstention by Ms. McCormick. Consent agenda items, there are none. Final plats, there are none. Preliminary and final development plans, Festival Center, Racetrack, the preliminary development plan amendment. Who is handling this one?
That's going to be Timothy Whitten. We'll give a brief overview of that.
Mr. Whitten.
This Festival Center is an old CPUD. It was created in the late 80s. This is it up on the screen. That's the old and the current master plan. They proposed around 640,000 square feet of commercial retail space. The Tractor Marine lot and the Dunn Motors lot were not part of that plan. That's the blue and the red rectangle on the first image there in your staff report. In 2014, this whole area, including the Tractor Marine and the used car lot, were rezoned in the citywide rezoning to MXC PD. MXC PD requires a master plan to be in place before development can occur. So Racetrack wants to locate on the Dunn Motor lot, which is the red box on that graphic. To do that would require them to do a master plan covering that lot. Part of the Racetrack also locates on and impacts a portion of the Festival Center parcel, which is here. So the Racetrack will sit on this lot, and then part of the parking and driveway crosses this Festival Center piece here. So that old plan has the main road kind of bisects the property, running more or less east and west, and right in here it turns north and terminates at Main Street up here across from the Exxon station. Because of the Racetrack layout crosses that road, it then becomes necessary to amend, not only to do a master plan on this little piece here, but also to amend the Festival Center plan to figure out what's going to happen with this road alignment. So that's what they've done. They've amended this portion of the Festival Center master plan, included the Dunn Motor lot within that plan. Going back to the old plan, it showed a fuel center up here in this area next to the used car lot. So the new plan shifts that fuel center over from here. The building actually sits on this lot, and then of course the rest of their lot is on that old fuel center lot. As you can see, the road alignment has changed. Instead of turning north and terminating at Main Street, it now runs east and terminates at Rockland Road across from the Speedway, which better aligns with future city plans for Rockland Road and this future road here. Like I said, the old master plan allowed a fuel station. So they're requesting a couple of waivers. The first one is a 0-foot rear building setback. So their main building, the C-store, sits here. Up here is the Tracker Marine building. They request a 0-foot building setback, push their building almost up to the property line. They've got like a 5-foot sidewalk in between the building and the property line. So if they are granted the 0-foot setback, then there would be about 25 feet between the back of the Speedway and the front of the Tracker Marine building. The MXC PUD zoning requires a 20-foot rear building setback, but the plan development ordinance does allow the Planning Commission and BOMA to make exceptions to the established lot standards if they find that allowing the exception, 1, enhances the overall merit of the plan development, 2, promotes the objectives of both the city and the development, 3, enhances the quality of the design of the structures and the site, 4, enables the development to offer environmental and pedestrian amenities, 5, will not cause such an adverse impact on neighboring properties so as to outweigh the benefits of the development, 6, is compatible with the land use policies of the city's land use and transportation plan, and 7, provides a public benefit to the city. So those 7 criteria are what would need to be looked at in reference to whether or not you grant that 0-foot rear building setback. The second waiver is kind of related to that in that it's needed just for the space they have between the Tracker Marine building and the right-of-way. They're also requesting a waiver from the required 10-foot landscape strip along their road frontage. The landscape strip is an area 10 feet in width that's required along all commercial road frontages. And that's the area in which the street trees, or required street trees, are planted and parking lot screening shrubs. And also provides just a visual separation between the street and the parking lot. Speedway, this is the plan that y'all have. It's been highlighted to show the red area is the area that needs the waiver. In other words, it's less than 10 feet. The green is the area outside of their property boundaries and is in the TDOT right-of-way. They submitted an updated plan today, and they squeezed down this drive aisle from, I believe, 34 feet to 30 feet. And instead of requesting a waiver in this middle section, they no longer need that waiver there. Instead, they need the waiver here on this right side, which is about 6 to 7 feet in width. And then over here on the left side, this sliver here is about 1 to 2 feet in width. So those are the 2 areas they need that waiver. One of staff's comments is to reduce the width of this drive aisle, and this is a comment to which the applicant is objecting. The comment is to reduce the drive aisle from 30 feet to the required minimum of 24, so they can pick up that needed width. So they're objecting to that. And then staff also had a recommendation that if you do grant the landscape strip waiver, that you do so conditioned on them obtaining permission from TDOT to locate the required landscaping within the TDOT right-of-way. And I believe the city engineer had some preliminary discussions with TDOT, and initial indications are that they think they would be okay with that. It's still got to be hammered out, but I think they're primarily concerned with their right-of-way as far as it extends up to and just behind the power poles, which are kind of along the street edge. So looks like they're going to be okay with that, but that still has to be hammered out. So that's the last thing is the findings of fact. This technically is a rezoning, but it's not changing zoning. It's the zoning classification is going from MXCPD to MXCPD. So for that reason, you need to, when you make your motion, include findings of fact. And I'll be glad to hand this down to whoever wants to make the motion. I'll just run through these quickly. A, the amendment is in agreement with the land use plan for the area, and staff can confirm that it is in agreement with the land use plan for Regional Activity Center. B, there will be no adverse effect upon adjoining property owners unless such effect can be justified by the overwhelming public good or welfare. C, no property owner or small group of property owners will benefit materially from the change to the detriment of the general public. And D, conditions affecting the area have changed to a sufficient extent to warrant an amendment to the area's land use plan and subsequently the zoning map.
Mr. Whitten, is there anything else?
That's it.
Okay, so let's go and ask is there anybody from the developer here, the racetrack folks? If you'd come on up and introduce yourselves. We're going to introduce you in just a second here. The couple of things that we should go ahead and question that I do have about the zero setback. I assume that that's all pavement anyway behind there. Am I correct on that? Okay. The other thing is with that, going back to 20 feet, and then their entrance is, I believe you said it was 20 feet from the back of the building to the front of the marine shop. Will that satisfy fire codes and them getting through there?
I would ask,
In other words, can a truck get through there? I would assume you can. I know normally it's like 26 feet.
well, per this plan, 20 feet of pavement plus the 5-foot sidewalk for a total building separation of about 25 feet as it's shown here.
So do you have, my question is the 25 feet adequate, or do you need another foot? Okay, all right. All right. Okay, go ahead and introduce yourselves, and I guess it says on our sheet here that you're agreeing, but you'd like to discuss planning comment number 7, which is the 24 feet to minimize the area needed to landscape waiver, strip waiver, and then public works comment number 1. Am I correct on that? If you would, just introduce yourself and, yeah.
Sure. My name is Drew Cunningham. I'm with Racetrack Petroleum. We're at 200 Cobb Galleria Parkway, Atlanta, Georgia, 30339. Thank y'all for hearing us here tonight. Really appreciate it. We're excited about developing in Hendersonville. We're new to the area. If you don't know about us, we are a third-generation, privately held convenience store company. All of our employees are corporately hired and get 401k benefits, all that kind of stuff. Take pride in our people at the store, and so we're excited about bringing that product to Hendersonville. Just to touch on, I guess, the waivers that we're asking for, as far as the 0-foot setback in the rear goes, we are working with the boat center. We have a letter from them supporting the waiver, and we feel like the reason that's necessary is just with our truck movements and where everything is, we've got it about as tight as we can get it on site, or we wouldn't be asking for that. And it really plays out into the landscape buffer waivers as well. As staff's mentioned, and they've been great to work with so far, that we have moved the driveway in to really limit the area that we're asking for. It's really almost limited to that off-site drive area. And we're also working with the property owner to see if maybe we can get a bigger easement and just scoot the drive back. Part of what I wanted to discuss regarding that comment was in the staff comments, it had mentioned us going and getting a TDOT permit, which it sounds like there's been favorable conversations with so far. If there's any way to leave the door open a little bit, though, I don't want to get all the way to the end of the line and then have to come back through development plan approval process if for some reason TDOT did not approve of the permit. If there was a way to say, if we'll apply for the TDOT permit, which we'll be applying for an access permit anyway, and so we see no reason not to apply for the permission to plan in the right-of-way. I'd just like it to be worded in a way that, or we fit all additional landscaping in the landscape buffers that are provided, or work with a reasonable solution with staff, something along those lines to where we wouldn't have to come back through just to ask for the waiver again. I'm trying to think, what else was there?
That was it for the planning comments.
I think that was it for the planning comments. Oh, and the other comment we wanted to touch base on, there was a Public Works comment about $35,000 contribution to some mast arms instead of the string light poles. We're not opposed to paying any type of impact fees, but we would request that we just had some more information on how that number is coming from. And I know we have talked with the traffic engineer, and he's let us know how he estimated that. I guess we just weren't clear on how that's enforced, what happens, where that money goes in the short term. What happens if the mast arms, I guess, don't go in at our development, they'll go in the future. Just where does that money go in the meantime? I think just for us to be able to contribute to something like that, we would just need more information. So all I would request is that as we move through the process, we get some type of, if it's a development agreement or something along those lines about where that money goes.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that the first thing we want to deal with is the waiver for item number 7, which is the width to 24 feet to minimize the amount of the area needed for the landscape strip waiver. Of course, he's made some provision there. It's kind of changed a little bit. So I guess the question I have would be for Mr. Boyd, and I know Mr. Witten has already kind of walked us through this a little bit. and the applicant has made the comment, walk us through this process of the TDOT permit and them having to keep up with the irrigation and all that kind of thing.
I kind of compare it to, some cities have, that their interchanges landscaped, and cities take over that and maintain it, and TDOT has allowed that to happen in some situations. And the conversations I had with TDOT this past week, I didn't get into the specifics of what would happen, but I didn't feel any, I guess when we spoke about it, I felt like they would allow some plantings and some things to take place in that green space. And as far as a formal agreement, I don't know what kind of agreement we would have to allow that, but it may just be a simple email or a letter to TDOT explaining that the city would hold racetrack responsible for that area.
Okay. Per chance, as the applicant suggested, if TDOT did not go along with that, then what would be staff's position on that?
As far as the green space?
Yes. Mr.
The waiver they requested.
You want to speak to that one, Keith? Yeah.
Yeah, what we would do is if that didn't work out with TDOT, I'd say we would just work with them to try to get a best fit in there. Mr. Witten would work with them to make sure we got some plantings or trees that fit within that area. And if we couldn't do that to the staff's satisfaction, then it would have to come back to this body. But that would be an alternative. If the TDOT deal didn't work out, then working with staff to resolve it. And if that couldn't be worked out, then we bring it back.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
And
my
it was-
point is that if we do grant the waiver on this, that there is a Plan A and a Plan B in place if all else fails, so. And then the ultimate plan it'd come back here if nothing can come. But like you said, I think it's going to work out.
Sure.
All right, so if we grant that one, so the first waiver, I guess let's just take this bit by bit. The first one was about the setbacks. And so, commissioners, do you have any comments or any questions to the applicants about, let's take it one by one, about the setbacks first. We'll go from there. Okay?
Is this on the first?
On the very first one, which we've got the setbacks moving the building back, do you have anything you'd like to ask?
Well, I had a question on the landscaping.
Okay, well, let's take it one at a time, and then we'll come back to that, so.
Oh, I thought we were discussing that. So we've moved on from that one?
Well, what I'm coming back, I'm going to take it one by one. We'll come back to the landscaping here in a moment. But
Okay.
right now, they want to move the building back, and that's a setback waiver, and we need to deal with that first. So, any questions about that? Do I have a
Well,
motion to grant that?
I have a question.
Okay.
I'd like to ask the staff, has the planning commission done this in the past? Is there precedent for allowing a building a zero setback? Has that been allowed in the past?
Mr. Whitten?
Of course, we do have some zoning classifications that allow for a 0-foot side yard setback. I don't recall there being a 0-foot rear setback. There may have been, I don't recall.
The applicant said they had a letter. Do you have
Yes,
a
sir.
copy of that? Has the staff seen a copy of that
Yes,
letter?
we have seen that letter from the owner of the Tracker Marine property, and he is in agreement with this request.
Okay.
I might speak.
Mr. Free?
Yeah, one thing I want to kind of explain about where that entryway is in front of Tracker Marina, that's actually on the Tracker Marina property.
Mhm.
And then what happened is when we first started talking with Racetrack, there was a separate entry point for Tracker Marina, and then they would have had another one right after that, so there would have been two access points. It just so happened that when Tracker Marina was purchasing that property, they were in here on the same day that we were talking to Racetrack, so we were able to put them together, and then they worked out this agreement to move the to have one entry point off of Main Street and share that. And then what that'll allow is it'll be a little bit safer than having two. Plus, an issue that Tracker Marina was having is when they had their boats on not having to come out onto Main Street with the boats, they could cut through and then get out on Rockland Road, and that was something that was beneficial, I think, to the owners of Tracker Marina.
So, to the applicant, is there a compromise here? If 0 isn't acceptable to some of the members, is there a compromise to try to split the baby or do anything to allow more space? I know you have an agreement with the existing owner, Marine, but I don't know about a future owner that may be interested in that building and how it might affect the impact of a transaction.
Sure, and I understand the concern there. I really wish there was. It really just has to do with the lot depth and our truck turn radius, and our trucks can't maneuver the property with any less spacing. And so what we're looking at, the distance from our curb to the MPDs, our dispensers, is already minimized to what we're comfortable with without one of our trucks, when they're moving in, hitting something, and then then you have the parking space, and then you have the building envelope. We're actually already trying to put our heads together to figure out where we're going to come up with the landscape beds. We're going to have to move the sidewalk a little bit there as well. So we may already have to be eating into that space that we're really comfortable with. So I wish we could back off of it a little bit, but we're really already pinched from an operational standpoint.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. Any other questions from the staff? Ms. Petrelli?
Thank you, Chairman. Marshall, I meant to ask you this earlier.
Okay, no, we're dealing with the setbacks right now.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
In regard to the stormwater management area, are you married? What is the reason why that's located there?
That's what they had proposed.
So there's no geological reason why it's there?
I don't think so.
I'm Matt Roll with CESO. We're the civil engineer consultant here locally, and there is a ravine back there, and that's where the outfall is going to be at for the stormwater on the site.
But it's able to be manipulated. You're not married to a stream or a underground spring or?
No.
There's nothing, okay. The reason why I asked, because if you're looking at how close the market is to the existing boat center, and I'm sure you guys tried to maximize the site any way possible, but did you try to bump it up here to get away from this building and then maybe put your stormwater over here? Is that a possibility?
We have looked at it, and it's
Too tight?
and from an operational standpoint, you end up putting the fuel canopy significantly further away from the building than we're comfortable with as well. And
I
then
see.
you got the truck making awkward movements trying to get in and out.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Petrelli. Any other questions about the setbacks? Okay, I would entertain a motion to grant the waiver. Mr. Millsap makes the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Altizer. Any more discussion? Okay, we are voting here just on this particular part of the piece, and that is the setbacks. All in favor say aye of granting the waiver. Aye. Any opposed? No. Ms. Atchley and Mr. Robertson. And it passes, the waiver passes. The second waiver then we're now dealing with is the driveway width to 24 feet and the landscape strip waiver. And once again, I think Mr. Free's spoken to this. We do have a Plan A and a Plan B. TDOT is involved, and then of course it would come back to staff if that can't be resolved, and then it would come back to us. Are there any questions, any more questions about granting that waiver? Mr. Robertson.
Applicant, if TDOT grants this waiver, describe to us what you intend to do in this green area.
We'd meet all city standards on the landscaping, and maybe even go a little bit beyond on shrubs. Our general, what I'm used to seeing, I don't know the shrub requirement offhand, but generally speaking, we put more shrubs than are required just because it's what we like to do aesthetically. It's usually more than required. So probably have a hedgerow and the required amount of trees per linear foot.
So would the entire green space be landscaped?
If you count sod, yes, sir. I mean, it would be sod and shrubs and trees to meet the requirements.
And staff, the real problem we're talking about where it goes down to 1 foot wide is up on the left side of the green diagram. Is that correct? That's where it tapers down to 1 foot wide. So back down where the red area is in the middle, how wide would that be, Timothy?
The area on the right there is about 6 to 7 feet, which we can work with that. I think we can get most, if not all, of the required landscaping, the minimum standard within that area on the right if we had to.
I'd just like, for the record, to state that I am concerned about the 1 foot, and I'm hoping if this waiver is granted conditionally, that the staff will take my comments to heart, that I'm more concerned about the 1 foot wide area. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, and I'm sure that staff will work with the applicant, and if that is a concern, trying to figure a way to alleviate that issue.
Yes, sir.
You okay with that?
100%.
Okay, all right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Ms. Petrelli.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Freed, would this be an appropriate time to ask about what we discussed earlier with the road? Or no? I know that's on the outside of the area that we're discussing.
I'd say after this.
Okay.
Yeah, after this.
Yeah.
In
Okay.
general discussion, yeah.
Okay, then I'll just make one comment about the plantings, and this is more of an in-house issue because we've actually been getting more feedback from citizens, especially as we've seen different areas of town grow and develop, like Indian Lake, where we've had green and shrubbery that is maybe overgrown its welcome, and people can't see their sight lines. So with as busy a corridor as it is going from Gallatin Road onto Rockland Road, whatever we choose to plant there, that it not obstruct the views as it grows, something that's going to be short and something that's you all can easily maintain, but it maintain some aesthetic value.
We have no problem with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Petrelli. Any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion to grant the second waiver here that we're talking about for the landscaping and the okay, Mr. Lee makes the okay, yeah, Mr. Lee makes the motion to grant the waiver with Mr. Roberson's comments. Yeah, looking at that 1 foot. State it for me, Mr. Robertson.
I think the motion needs some real specificity because, you know, we're conditioning, we're giving staff some authority, and if it doesn't, it comes back. So I guess I'm wondering, Mr. Chairman, how much specificity we need to add to this motion to make it clear for the record.
Thank you. I think that the comment is well taken. The fact of the matter is in my understanding, the motion would include the fact that they're going to apply for the permit through TDOT. If that does not prevail, then, and even if it does prevail with TDOT, they're still going to be responsible for irrigation and all that, and keeping that up. Second idea, if that didn't pass, it would come back to the staff, and hopefully it could be worked out on that level, and obviously if it couldn't be worked out. So I'm stipulating that those are the stipulations involved, and then the added stipulation is your concern about this 1 foot area, and that's what I'm thinking the motion should be. But now, you know, I don't.
That's exactly what
That's
we're
better.
thinking about.
Okay,
I
and
just think it needed for the record.
Okay, thank you very much. And Ms. Ashley, you were in the queue.
I just wanted to say that we make it staff recommend, you know, whatever the staff recommends, because we trust them explicitly.
Oh, yes, yes.
So they can handle that. That's not something that needs to come back before this body.
I agree totally,
Okay.
totally, and I don't think it will. I think that they'll be able to handle it. So we have that motion made by Mr. Lee with those stipulations. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Stringfellow. Any more discussion? All in favor? Oh, Ms. McCormick.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand, because I can foresee an ambiguous issue coming up. So in the event, let's say worst case scenario, TDOT says no. And then ultimately, the staff has to figure out with the applicant what the recommendation is. If, in the event there's an impasse, then what? Have we conditionally granted this waiver?
Comes back to us.
Or it basically comes back to us?
Comes back to us.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Ms. McCormick. All right, we have a motion second. Any more discussion? All in favor of granting the second waiver that we've discussed, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the third that we're dealing with before we vote on this preliminary development plan amendment is the waiver on the, well, it's not a waiver as much as it is clarification on the $35,000 for payment. And so you asked that there be some expression of clarification on that. So, Mr. Boyd, would you do that for us?
Sure. There's an email I sent earlier today that explains some of that, but the idea behind it was the current equipment that we have at the intersection. The idea was that we had a chance to maybe update and improve what we had. So I took a total cost of $140,000 for the signal installation. If you divide that among each corner, with there being, of course, 4 corners, that's at $35,000 per corner. That they would need to contribute towards the upgrading of that signal. And I think you'd mentioned the development agreement. I think I can talk with Keith. I think we would be open to that. Just to have some type of arrangement to work out the details. But
I think that's all we're looking for is more clarity. When I get asked to write a $35,000 check, I usually have to provide a little bit of information behind it. And so I think just getting my bosses at a comfort level where this will, in fact, in the future go towards new signals at the intersection, things of that nature.
Ms. Ashley.
I think the question was, is it going in the general fund, or is it going?
No, that money would be designated for the improvements of that signal.
Right, so that was his question.
Right, and that's
Okay.
for the development agreement. I mean, we would, we could further clarify, with the development agreement.
And I think that's, for now, I think that's all we're looking for, and we can iron all that out as we move forward.
Okay. Okay, well, no vote needs to be taken on that because that's simple. They're agreeing to it. They just want a clarification. So it puts us back now to the main item that's before us. It is the preliminary development plan amendment, and as amended through our waivers. And so we are now back to that, and we would entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion to accept with all staff comments and the waivers granted. Do we have a second?
I do have a question. I was in the queue.
Second, okay. And Ms. Petrelli, we can go for discussion. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, sir. So I'm one of the aldermen for that area and travel that road quite frequently, and we appreciate you all looking at this part of town. In regards to, I just want to relay some of my concerns and see what you guys think, and I've also spoke to our engineers and our architect about it, but as you come off of 386 on exit 3, as you know, you're in that lane until you get onto Rockland Road to make that right. So you have, and I'm talking rush hour, 5 to 7 p.m. So when you come off the highway, you have people going straight. You have some of those folks trying to make a left, and then you have folks in the middle lane trying to get into that right lane, all to get into, it's kind of like bumper cars. It's a very hectic, short area. So some of my concern was that, and if somebody should stop or get delayed pulling into the gas station, the backup, that could potentially create. So I don't know if there was a traffic study done or if one is warranted. The next comment per se is that when you turn on to Rockland Road from Gallatin Road, if there was a way to make it, and maybe Marshall can explain this better in his engineering expertise, but just taking every opportunity to make that intersection wider for future growth. I know you guys are going to do curbing, correct?
Right, there'll be curb and gutter along the entire frontage.
There's just not a lot of there's not any curb and gutter on Rockland Road as far as I'm aware. Maybe by Harbortown, I don't think there's even any there either.
No.
So just room enough that we do have a little bit of shoulder, that we're not boxing ourselves in, if there's a way to smooth out that curve, that's more of an engineering issue, but I am concerned about the traffic in that area, especially during nighttime rush hour. But Marshall, are you able to speak to that?
Yeah,
or- Thank
I
you.
know there's some utility poles in that area, but I think, working with staff, working with the applicant during the site plan process, I think we could, we could maximize that the best we can to kind of work around what's there to accommodate your request.
Yeah, 'cause,
Sorry.
with the development, with you all potentially coming in here to develop that, and with it going, with the cut-through road coming across from the speedway, that gives opportunity to widen that area, especially for the outgoing lanes in the morning where it backs up, those 2 lanes that are turning left. So any opportunity to create more width through there and shoulder, because I believe that ends before the speedway, right, when we get into that striped area.
Yeah.
So if that's a possibility to enhance that area, from an engineering standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Petrelli. Any more questions, any more discussion?
Question.
Mr. Roberts.
And these are for Timothy. First of all, this design, this festival center, has been in since the 80s, is that correct? And can you tell me about, has there been requests for development in this area since the 80s, since this was designed?
No, sir, not to my knowledge. We have not had any official applications. We did have a little bit of interest a year and a half, 2 years ago about maybe reverting this back to the old industrial zoning and putting in some industrial type uses back there, but that never went anywhere. But nothing other than that I'm aware of.
Yeah. I know Alderman Petrelli has mentioned that she would love development in her ward, and I think this is a development that I think I can support, notwithstanding my concern about the 0 lot line. Is this with the waivers compliant with the land use plan that's been adopted by?
Yes, sir.
By this? And I understand from some earlier discussions with you that there are some building elevation issues that you've had with the developer.
We're in the process of working through that, and there is a staff comment to that effect that we continue to work together to kind of upgrade the building to kind of be the best it can be. When we first met with them, they presented us a very attractive, very nice looking fuel center, and we've been working to kind of meet that initial standard. I think there's room there to kind of make some compromise and add some things that aren't there yet, but we're working with them, and I think they've indicated they're still willing to work on that. And if we can't come to a resolution, you're going to have a chance at the FDP and then again the site plan to look at if there are any remaining issues that will come before you.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you. Okay, any more discussion? Hearing none, we do have a motion and a second on the floor, and this is where we need the findings of fact. And if you want to hand that to somebody next to you, and if one of you great people down there would like to make this motion. Mr. Lee.
The amendment is in agreement with the land use plan for the area. There will be no adverse effect upon adjoining property owners unless such effect can be justified by the overwhelming public good or welfare. No property owner or small group of property owners will benefit materially from the change to the detriment of the general public. Conditions affecting the area have changed to a sufficient extent to warrant an amendment to the area's land use plan and subsequently the zoning map.
And you make that motion? So moved?
So amended.
So amended. Second? Ms. McCormick, second. We've already had a lot of discussion, but any more discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? There you go.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah,
We appreciate your time.
Pass, so ordered. We move on now to site plans. We have the volunteer park at Arrowhead, Phase 2 concession stand addition. Owner of the City of Hendersonville. Do you want to speak to this one, Mr. Free, or somebody, or is Mr. Lamar going to do that?
Timothy Witten.
Timothy Witten? Okay.
This is just adding a concession stand to the volunteer park. I believe all the issues have been worked out with staff, so I have no comments.
Okay, so move. Okay.
Second.
Second. Who made the motion? I'm so sorry. Mr. Robertson. And then Ms. McCormick made the second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it's carried. There are no sketch plats, no preliminary plats, no rezoning requests. We have staff projects that have been approved. There are 3 of them that you can take a gander at. Staff reviewed projects that are pending. Of course, our Fountain Brook, Indian Lake Village, Mansker Farms, and the Joe Saunders property. And then we're going to move on to item number 15, which is other. And then after that, before we do the planning director comments, we will take up the 2 additions to the agenda. So let's deal with the Ivy Point issue right now. Mr. Free.
Thank you, Chairman. Just wanted to go over real quickly. Everybody has it in their packet. Just an overview of Ivy Point at Patmore Place. Just wanted to make everybody aware that this development is, in addition to having side-loaded garages where they have side-loading garages, they're also going to be constructing what's called bolt-on garages that are typically more than 20 foot from the front of the structure, about 50 foot from the street. These bolt-on garages are items that have been approved in all of the other developments out there. It just so happened on this one, it didn't specify that when this was approved back in 2006, but also, like a lot of our newer developments have photos or elevations, this particular development didn't have any. And we kind of ran across this when we were issuing permits, and I just wanted to bring it. This is something that we're doing administratively at the staff level, but I just wanted to make the Planning Commission aware of it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Free. Mr. Robertson, go ahead and guide us through what you were wanting to share.
Thank you, and I'll be brief, or I'll try to be brief. I was reading recently a book on the Constitutional Convention, and in the middle of the Constitutional Convention, as most of y'all know, there was a procedural question that the states couldn't get together on. And there was a lot of back and forth, and even in the 100-degree weather in Philadelphia, there was even tempers flared and threats of violence against each other. It was a mess. And in the middle of that, Benjamin Franklin asked for the floor, and he at that time said, "Mr. Chairman, would it be okay if this House or this body had a prayer?" And I think that I really respect BOMA for beginning all of their meetings in prayer. And I would like to ask, and I don't know if it requires a vote, but just as a procedural matter, before the Planning Commission meetings, that the chairman would either lead us in a word of prayer or that he would designate someone to lead us in a word of prayer before we begin our meeting. So I would like to request that we begin the next meeting in prayer unless there's opposition. So, thank you.
We're all about prayer, so.
Who's going to vote against prayer? Okay. What about taking an offering up? Could I take?
Let's go on and deal with that one right now.
Yeah. All right.
The prayers, everybody okay with the procedurally, we start out our meetings with prayer?
Thank you.
That's very good. Thank you, Mr. Robertson.
Thank you. The second thing is a point of privilege. Several weeks ago, a number of residents from Autumn Creek and Durham and the area that is served by Drakes Creek Road appeared before BOMA and requested that BOMA take action to fix the road. I know I talked to Alderman Petrelli about this issue, and she was very supportive. So I personally, since I brought this matter up once before, like to inform this body that road has been repaired. It is a joy to drive on now, and I would like to thank the mayor for his leadership and other members of BOMA, and I would appreciate, Alderman Petrelli, as you give your report, that this body appreciates the speed that road, in the repair of that road. I think it will be a great asset. I think houses will sell quicker out in that area now because of a good road. I think it's an asset to the city, and I just wanted to take a point of personal privilege and thank BOMA and especially the mayor for the work in getting this done so expeditiously. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. Planning Director, comments.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I had just a couple of things. First thing I'll start out with is the Power of 10 conference that's going to be on Thursday, September the 13th, from 8:30 to 2. Lauren's checked with, I think, most everybody and has got their information on attending. Looks like we're going to have quite a bit of attendance. Looks like most everybody's going to be there. If you haven't gotten back with Lauren, let her know before you leave tonight. If you plan on attending, because we'll purchase the tickets for this event probably in the next couple of days. So, and if anything changes and you thought you were going to go and you're not able to, just let her know by, say, tomorrow would be fine. A couple of other things. One thing I wanted to mention is we were talking earlier about the convenience store with the gas station. One of the things that I intend to do is when any convenience store comes through for site plan approval, so when this comes back through, the one was approved tonight, when it comes back through the final development plan, and they'll probably have their site plan with it, what I want to do moving forward is when we approve any site plan, whether it's planned development or not, I want to get notes on there that at such time that it's not used as a fueling station anymore, that the canopy and the tanks need to be removed. And I think that'll give us something that, as we approve those site plans, will give us the ability, maybe not next year or maybe 10 or 12 years from now, give future planning commissions and staff the ability, if we have gas stations that go vacant, that those would have to be removed and they couldn't be further utilized. So I think that'll be a positive things moving forward. The other thing that I wanted to kind of update, I had some questions from some of the planning commissioners on an update on our development impact fee study. That's progressing very well. We're actually, the staff is going to have a phone conference with our consultant tomorrow to kind of see where we're at and moving forward. We're working with them and working with the mayor's office that hopefully having a informational meeting before the end of the month to kind of catch everybody up of where we're at and what to expect when rolling into next month, that hopefully there will be some options on how to move forward with the development impact fee process. And that is all that I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Free, and thank you for the staff for a fine job.
Mr. Chairman, having accomplished the purpose for which this meeting was gathered, I move we stand adjourned.
Got a motion and a second? Any seconds? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.
Deliberate on it, but I just want to give you an update.